Hello and welcome to episode 65 of the Best Games Period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me this week are just two guys.
Just two guys you picked up off the street?
They wandered in one day, and actually, in reality, it was the reverse. I was just some guy you picked up off the street.
Yeah, that's what we get for feeding you once.
You fed me after midnight. Gremlins reference.
You have gotten a lot hairier.
Yeah, no.
Actually, that's the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah,
I was going to say.
Less hairy.
Shoot. Yeah.
He was like a lumberjack when we first met him.
Yeah.
Lumberjack.
But also the gremlins got less hairy.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it does actually fit. Yeah. In a roundabout way. Anyway, with me this week, as always, is Daniel Jones and Jeremy Brown. You get what's up, guys? What's up, smellers?
Just chilling in the hood. Or whatever that goes. Riding in the hood, chilling all alone. Nothing. What are you doing? I was going somewhere with that, but I totally screwed it up, so I'm done.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Daniel, do you have anything to say for yourself?
I'm just smelling the roses.
Man, you guys are up to lame activities.
Yeah.
Anyway, this week we're talking about The Walking Dead Season 2 from Telltale. 2013 classic? Question mark? I guess maybe that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking Season 2 here, so...
Yeah.
And also, like, 2013/14. It is Telltale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First episode released in 2013, and the rest of it released in 2014.
Although it was much...
They have a habit of doing that.
It was still much quicker than some of their other series, so...
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, by The Walking Dead Season 2, they had kind of gotten into their production pipeline. Like, they kind of have it down now, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to wait years long.
Because I remember, I don't know, 2011, 2012, you Jeremy, you in particular, were so anxious and, like, almost mad.
No, I was irate.
They were coming out. Yeah. Yeah,
not so much because they didn't come out, but they would be like, you know, like pre-buy this... Episodic games, mainstream, like, that everybody knew about, were kind of rare back then.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the first one I really ever got into. And they were like, buy this, like, in, whatever, pre-order this game. And, like, the first episode came out, like, in, I don't know, December or January. And the last episode was supposed to come out in April. We're talking about season 1. And it took, like, a year and a half. So, but they just kept, like, you know, on Twitter and whatever, they'd be like, it's almost ready, only a few more days now. And then they'd be like, it's been delayed for another 3 months. Like, an episode, not the game, an episode.
Yeah,
So,
they were kind of cagey, too. Like, we're not sure when it's coming out, you know, whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
And that did kind of get old after a while.
Yeah, but then George R.R. Martin kind of made everybody forget about that.
Well, also, Mass Effect 3 kind of made everybody forget about that, too.
Well, plus, the game was so amazing, like, you could... That's why people were mad, or anxious, or whatever. Because they just wanted more. Like, The Walking Dead Season 1, I mean, I'm pretty sure we all agreed it was the best games period, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, hands down, so... it was that good, like, we just wanted more.
Yeah. And I mean, pretty much all the reviews that I read about The Walking Dead Season 2 reference The Walking Dead Season 1. Like, it has become kind of a focal point of comparison, not just because this game is a Walking Dead game, but also because it is, to a lot of people, the quintessential episodic adventure game experience. Like, you can't escape a comparison to it if you're a future Telltale game or a future episodic adventure game from anyone else.
I mean, I think there's a bigger reason, not maybe a bigger reason, but another reason they reference the first season is because, you know, the choices are supposed to play into each other and carry over. We'll talk a little bit about that, I think. I think some do, some don't. Obviously, they have to start and end somewhere, especially if they're going to do sequels and whatnot. A little bit mixed on how well that worked. I'm excited to talk about the game.
I mean, yeah, we're already kind of talking about the game. We just dove right in this episode, I guess.
Yeah, we did.
So the decisions in Telltale games, I think a lot of people give the first Walking Dead a pass for that. And I think people are also much harsher on future Telltale games when it comes to discussing choice and how big of a role player choice plays in kind of shaping those narratives.
Well, I think until after we'd played the first one, or started seeing sequels to games, we didn't fully realize how much it was really more of an illusion of choice. It wasn't always real choice.
Right.
But Telltale does a better job than most games that say they're giving you choice of actually, some of them do make a difference.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of a complicated issue just because when it comes to choice especially in Telltale games, but a lot of times just choice in general in a lot of games that have kind of diverging narratives or claim to have branching paths or all that stuff. One of the issues I have is I think a lot of people who play those games aren't equipped to necessarily.
Are you about to call a bunch of people stupid, Jack?
No, I'm about to call a bunch of people unequipped to deal with that type of storytelling because a lot of people focus on the end result of decisions. And the problem is with a lot of these Telltale games and also even bigger budget games, the purpose of having those choices in the game is not so much to change the end outcome, because when you're in the moment, you're not supposed to know the end outcome. So when you're actually playing the game, it's more, again, this is a cliche, but it's more about the journey than it actually is the destination. It's about building the context for what kind of character you want to be playing. And it's less...
Jack is kind of referencing Mass Effect 3 right now.
No, I don't disagree. I actually agree, and I think that's the way it has to be to have a good all-around game.
Just to back up a little bit, I don't mean that everyone is stupid if you are looking for more in choice in games. It's just I think we are still... I think as a whole, the gaming community is still learning how to interpret and deal with these types of games because they are relatively new, having kind of a cinematic, divergent story. And I don't want to jump ahead to kind of more the end of the episode, but you can really see what I'm talking about in how The Walking Dead Season 2 ends. Like, that kind of culminates a bunch of, I guess, the journey of however you wanted Clementine to shape up as a character. And what you take away from that ending is entirely different depending on the choices and the journey that you made, regardless of whether or not those individual choices actually significantly change the outcome of each interaction. Like, if you made a choice to take a bunch of medicine or let someone have medicine in this game, that doesn't always necessarily have an impactful result, but it does shape who your character is and the context of that game world.
For sure. I was talking more about the carryover from one season to the next.
Okay. I totally missed that. So you make your point.
I think you just
I feel
did.
like I made mine. I'm gonna shut up now.
No, I agree with everything that you said, and I think a lot of that even applies to carrying over one season to another. They just kind of made it sound like it would be different. Like, as far as I can tell, and spoilers, by the way, obviously, the only real
we're gonna
impact,
spoil the crap out of this.
only real impact your choices from season 1 had was whether or not Lily showed up in your game in season 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I do have a question. Did either of you play 400 Days?
I did not.
No.
Oh, gosh. I didn't either, so...
I thought you did,
No.
Jeremy. I could have swore you did.
I heard it wasn't that good, so I was like, whatever.
Yeah. Now, just to be clear to our audience, I have not played Walking Dead Season 2 for the most part. I played the first 2 episodes, and then I just stopped.
You played 40% of it. That's almost half
Sure.
of it.
Sure. I haven't finished it.
What? Out of curiosity, why did you stop?
Because I couldn't even tell you what happened in those episodes, and I did not care. The only character that I cared about at all was Clementine, and I remember reaching the end of that episode and being like, well, that was interesting, and then just not when episode 3 came out, I saw it, and it's just thinking, I have no desire to play that. So I didn't. Same thing kind of happened with Fables. And the same thing.
Okay, the
Wolf Among Us?
Wolf Among Us. Yeah.
And the same thing kind of happened with the Game of Thrones.
Well, I'll seed the Game of Thrones right now, because that one was actually pretty terrible.
It was
Yeah.
okay. It was okay.
It was alright.
It was okay. It wasn't great by Telltale's standards.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it only really picked up in like episode 5 and 6 of that series. So
I never made it that far. I think I made it through 3, and then it was kind of like you with The Walking Dead. When 4 came out, I was just like, whatever.
I think a big part of it is that I've got a lot less time to dedicate to games now than I did, and even then I was starting to have less time to dedicate to games. So when that came out, because I think it was right around the time that Quinn was born, so it was just I couldn't dedicate much time to it, and I think personally I've started to have less patience for long form narratives. Like I don't binge watch TV shows very much at all anymore. Even shows that like I really want to watch, I just can't bring myself to watch them. I don't know if my attention span or what, but I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to any of my entertainment. So it's just for whatever reason, I just have less patience for the extraneous bullshit that comes along with television series and whatever. Like, for all that it does right, I think there is a lot of extraneous baloney in the Walking Dead series and any Telltale series.
really, okay,
Yep.
like what?
There's just a lot of side plots that I don't care about. Side stories and side characters. And the thing about the Walking Dead Season 2, when I played those first 2 episodes, nothing made me care at all about any of the side characters. The only character I cared about was Clementine, which was made even harder when she had no interesting foils to make her story and her character arc interesting in the slightest.
Okay.
So I lost complete interest.
Interesting. Well, so I just find that kind of fascinating because a lot of people would argue that Telltale games, episodic games in general, are kind of more suited to people who have a shorter attention span or less time because they are, by nature, broken up into chunks. And, like, each episode takes, like, an hour and a half-ish, maybe?
Or 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally should have... I mean, I have the time to play them. It's just...
If you have an hour and a half to
don't-
game, there's
I-
other games you'd rather play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Basically.
fair enough. It's no
And
Horizon.
I think another part of it is that they're not innovating anymore. The first the first Walking Dead season was incredibly innovative. It was very different and unique, and it was something I'd never seen games do before. But with each subsequent series and season, the formula has just started to lose its luster, and I think it lost its luster like very quickly. For me,
okay,
just for me personally.
Yeah. Because it is like their games still do. They sell very well. There's something about this type of storytelling that is a big hook for a lot of people, and I do think that especially for Telltale, like people will put up with a lot of miscellaneous crap to put up with a good story, and I think that while there have been some hits and misses, none of them have been outright just the worst. Like even with this series or the Game of Thrones series that you guys both dropped, you both dropped them after putting in like 4 or 5 hours into them.
Yeah, I think we're debating Telltale or episodic gaming more than we are
This
the game at hand at the moment.
But I think that's a valid
No,
thing
it's a very valid point
to put on the table.
Because I haven't honestly cared. Every time Telltale releases a game, I care less and less. Like, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, but
Right.
I really am not even, like... Yeah, I'm like, if I ever get around to it, or when it's free on PSN, PS Plus, then sure.
See,
And this might sound really... Jack, you might not like this, but... I think it's interesting, but I think the Last of Us actually had a big impact on my opinion of The Walking Dead. Just
so?
in general, the comic, the TV show, the game, but mainly the game. In that, like, I saw that games could tell a really interesting story. I like The Last of Us' story better, and I like the setting better, I like the characters better, I like all of it so much better, and it's not a chore to play. So it just, like, going back to The Walking Dead after playing The Last of Us I think was really difficult for me.
Yeah. No,
that's
fair,
really
especially because they kind of
comparing
came
apples
out...
there, though.
No, I'm not comparing apples to apples, but you can see why, like...
You'd make the comparison.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It kind of ruined
I mean,
it
I
for
don't
me.
agree with anything you said as far as factually. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Whatever.
But they're not the same thing, so...
Yeah, it's... I can see why you would say that, just because in terms of zombie storytelling, A, the zombie thing should have been over several years ago, and
Yeah.
B, The Last of Us really kind of knocked it out of the park as far as ambiguous, morality stuff in that kind of a setting. And I think it's going to be a while before we actually are ready to play another super serious, gritty zombie type game along those same lines.
Well, Sony's got 2 of them coming out in the next year or 2.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for those. So I might be eating my words same time next year, but don't have high hopes for them. But as far as The Walking Dead, so also I think maybe my perception of Telltale games in general might be different from both of yours, just because I think I'm the only one here out of the 3 of us who has played Tales from the Borderlands.
Yeah.
Right?
I played the first episode.
That series is probably, I would put it, I would love to talk about it on this show sometime, because I would actually put it on the same level as the first Walking Dead. It is some amazingly solid execution of the Telltale premise for their games. The writing's solid, it's incredibly funny, and aesthetically it fits perfectly with Borderlands.
Yeah, that's kind of a natural fit.
I don't think we'll see a better fit for the Telltale aesthetic.
I've heard a lot of good things about that game, so I'll give you that.
Yeah, I would highly recommend you guys try it, because I would love to talk about it with you guys sometime.
It was free on PS Plus last month. I downloaded the whole season.
I think I might have put it in my thing, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Maybe Randy Pitchford will come on the show and talk to us about it. Maybe I'll play it.
Maybe. So I'm right there with you in that their formula hasn't exactly evolved much since the first one. Like, there have been little tweaks to it here and there in terms of like what kinds of quick time events they put in their games, but let's be real, that's just don't do quick time events. Figure out a better way to do those things.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like gameplay mechanics go for any Telltale game, that's not even the point, honestly.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to the narrative generally.
But I have to imagine that there is some way they could have both, because they're pretty solid on the narrative end of things.
Do you think they've kind of backed themselves into the corner with this whole quick time event and point and click thing, though? Like, they could probably do other things, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I think they are capable of doing other types of games, but I do think they have, as a company, kind of moved towards this business model where they're able to reach out to Marvel and get Guardians of the Galaxy and have that kind of a partnership, and that's, I have to assume, that is incredibly profitable for them.
Oh God, yeah, I can't imagine.
But I also think that, and I'm not super well versed with what's going on in the background over at Telltale, but I have to imagine that they are working on a game engine that will allow them to continue doing these types of games, but have more freedom to kind of innovate on the gameplay end of things. Because right now,
would hope so.
Right now, I'm pretty sure they're still using like the same basic engine that they have been modifying slightly for each game that they've been making since The Walking Dead.
Yeah, or even like Back to the Future before that, and Jurassic Park.
Future.
Oh yeah, Jurassic Park, I think. But
my goodness.
I think that there is potential, if they moved out of that realm, for them to make just stuff that's more compelling on a gameplay level.
But I mean, like, I think that's a huge risk. I don't know if that would take away from. I mean, it's like their signature now. That's what they do.
But I have to imagine that they are successful enough now that they could take that risk.
Yeah.
Without dooming their company. You know?
As long as they didn't just focus only on that and not also have other projects in the works that are more of their traditional style.
Well, I know they have at least 3 development teams internally.
Yeah, no, they produce a lot now.
Yeah, so I have to imagine they could just put one of them on something, or even 2 of them on something.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the business end of things.
Yes.
The Walking Dead Season 2, while it's related to all of that, is kind of its own beast. Because I think at least right now we're putting like 4 years, 3 or 4 years of further Telltale games and putting it on the back of The Walking Dead Season 2, and I'm not entirely sure that's fair.
What? So let's talk about Season 2 exactly. So,
yeah.
As someone who didn't finish it and can't really remember the first 2 episodes very well,
yep.
Tell us what happens in Walking Dead Season 2. All the spoilers and everything.
Yeah. So...
Well, Clementine gets eaten by Lee at the end. Depending on whether or not you chose to kill him in the first one or let him turn.
It's a real circle of life type situation.
Yes. Well, that's poetic.
But the Walking Dead Season 2 just kind of picks up where the last season left off, and Clementine is with Omid and Krista, and they're just kind of going about their business. They're investigating a truck stop, bathrooms for supplies and whatnot, and this random stranger shoots Omid and then gets shot by Krista, and so then it's just Clementine and Krista, and then it jumps to 16 months later, And Krista, who is pregnant, is no longer pregnant and also doesn't have a child with her. So you can kind of assume what happened there.
She sold it on the black market.
And
Child came out a zombie.
Maybe, I don't know. That was one of my thoughts, honestly.
They end up getting separated, and I'm just gonna kind of fast forward because I'm getting too in depth here. Clementine ends up at like this cabin in the woods type situation with a bunch of people who don't trust her and think she was bitten by a zombie, but she was bitten by a dog, and she has to like take care of her own wound herself. It's very traumatic.
That's I hate that part of that game.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that The Walking Dead Season 2 is more so than the first season, is that it's I think it's a much crueler series. Like, there's a lot more death, and there's a lot more up close kind of violence and gore type stuff.
I think they just show it from different angles. I mean,
yeah,
episode 1 was pretty bad when it came to that. I mean, Lee, like, you're eating people, like that. There was, or not episode 1, but season 1. Yeah.
But I mean, like, just in the first episode alone, like, you have Omid getting shot in the gut, and then Krista's shooting this other person
with Clementine's gun because she carelessly left it laying about.
Yeah, come on, Clementine, stop being such a child.
Yeah,
and then there's you have to kill a dog, and that's very sad. I don't like that.
That part was
yeah. And then you have the having to take care of that wound yourself, and that's like, and this is all just in like the first episode. Like, it's not even.
Well, that's after trying to talk a guy into cutting his leg off.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you chose that, you could have chose Nick instead, I suppose, but I don't think anybody did because Nick was an ass up to that point.
So anyway, you bond with this new group of strangers. Events transpire. You have to take off because there's this stranger named Carver, and he's coming to kill everyone. And so people kind of scatter. You wind up at this like ski cabin.
I think it's like a ski resort. Like, yeah.
Ski resort. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Some of the party members kill a guy who just came out to welcome you. It leads to a lot of tensions. There's a pretty, I think, well-written, like, gay relationship in there.
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah, that is sad, but also well done.
Yeah, I don't mean it's sad that it's well written. It's that.
No, that's, yeah, of course. And then Carver's people show up. Kenny's there from the first game. I'm doing a really terrible job at summarizing this, but I'm trying to get through it so we can actually talk about the individual moments. From there, it goes to Carver's, like, compound that he has, and there's an entire episode about kind of escaping from that. And then it goes from that to the entire end goal of this season is trying to get to a place called Wellington, which is supposedly a safe place up in the colder area where there aren't as many zombies.
Yeah, Ohio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that theory would ever hold true.
I mean, I have to imagine it'd be hard for zombies
to move, like in deep snow, but not necessarily just the cold.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, the cold would, like, preserve them. Right?
Yeah. But if they had to lift their legs through heavy snow, then, yeah, they'd probably just tumble over.
That's a funny image. So they escape from the compound. Kenny gets beaten up so badly he, like, loses an eye.
Wait, Kenny's back?
Yeah.
Yep. I forgot that part.
His
And he's kind of unhinged
well,
potentially.
Wait, wasn't he before?
Well, so he kind of settled down in between The Walking Dead season 1 and season 2. And he gets married, he's fine. He's still mentally scarred, obviously, but you know, he's doing better. And then while they're escaping from the compound after he had his eye beaten out of its socket, his wife gets grabbed by a walker, and you have the option either to let her get eaten by a walker or try and cut her arm off and save her from the infection. Either way,
Yeah.
Kenny kind of...
You didn't have a real chance of ever saving her.
Yeah.
Long time.
Kenny kind of goes off the deep end after that.
Which, I mean, is understandable. Dude's been through some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, out of all the characters in season 2, I understand Kenny just kind of losing it towards the end. And also they're escaping with a pregnant lady who starts giving birth, and there's this whole complication, I think that's in the episode after. And so now the group has a baby, and they in that episode they also meet this lady named Jane, who is kind of this lone wolf type character who becomes a little bit like an older sister to Clementine. And then you have episode 5, which basically either kills off or scatters all of the characters who aren't Kenny, Jane, or this third guy, like Avro, Arvo?
The Russian dude?
Arvo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of becomes this power struggle between Kenny and Jane over who's going to be kind of the guardian, take on the guardian role for Clementine and this baby. Because they just can't work out their differences, and it culminates in a life or death struggle that Clementine can't break up, and she has to choose between which one she helps kill the other. It's
Yes, so I think one difference, or
rough.
one reason it's harder to connect with a lot of the side characters in this game is because there's a lot more of them than there are in the first one, and they tend to meet their demise much quicker. So most of them, like Telltale, didn't give the same amount of time and dedication to as they did in season 1. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I think that's one difference between the two.
Right. Keeping the same characters in a group in the first season, I think, is largely what helped people kind of really connect with the cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe, like, once or so every episode, you'd lose, like, one person from the main group.
Yeah, but like in this one, you go through, like, 3 different groups, if not more.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be, like, a climactic event, and, like, 3 or 4 people will die at a time. And I think, like you said, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And I think it meant a lot of people didn't necessarily connect as well with the cast as in the previous season.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't think that's bad.
No.
If that makes sense.
I don't either. I mean, I don't mean it as a negative. I just think it's definitely a difference.
And part of the reason why I don't think that's bad is because I think the main point of The Walking Dead Season 2 is supposed to center completely on Clementine and her relationship with this world in which she has to survive.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these people coming in and out of her life are teaching her things and skills and techniques that she's going to need. They always keep telling her, you're going to need this at some point in the future. You're going to need to know how to make a fire or, stitch a wound or stuff like that.
Clementine will remember that.
Yeah, this game is all about remembering that. And it I think that didn't necessarily connect as well with a lot of people as much as the first season's dynamic relationship between her and Lee connected with people, because that was a very well-rounded relationship, and here it's very much more focused. And again, I think a lot of people might not have connected with it on an emotional level as well. But I also think it is just as good as the first season. It's just not as emotionally compelling, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
If you can have that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first season was... Not the second season wasn't, but the first season had all kinds of those feel moments that... I think the second season lacked a little bit. Like when I had to make the hardest decisions, which was pretty much at the end, honestly, between, Kenny and Jane and whatnot. It wasn't near as hard as deciding whether or not I should, kill Lee or not kill Lee. Or it wasn't near as emotional as walking out of that place in Savannah and seeing, your parents have turned, which was the whole point of season 1, was trying to find them. That sort of stuff. And then walking out into the horizon and then seeing hope, hope in the distance. Like, this game had a lot of that, but not quite to that level, in my opinion. Again, I don't mean it's bad. Just not quite the same.
See, I thought it was very much focused, again, on Clementine's journey, and I liked that element of it so much, especially because the end, you can have several different endings where you help Kenny kill Jane or help Jane kill Kenny, and then you can figure out if you can live with having done that, or and go with that person, or go off on your own.
Yeah.
And those, like, that's taking into account everything that Clementine has been through the last few games. A lot of that just kind of goes into kind of what makes this season so great. And one of my favorite moments in Telltale gaming history period, is the ending of season 2, where if you choose not to go with either of them, the ending for that is so perfect, because it cuts to like a little bit later and Clementine's just kind of walking on her own, and then she finds this body in a field and she covers her face almost like in war paint with the blood from the zombie, and just like walks straight through a bunch of zombies to get to the gates of this supposedly safe city.
Do they ever actually show her getting to the gates? When I got that ending, it just cut off right as she was walking into the horde.
So it might have. You're right. I might be confusing two of the endings
because
together.
The other two, there's two other endings where they get to the gate of, they actually make it to Ohio, whatever that place, that town, Wellington. And then the other one, they go back to Kramer. Is that his name? Carver. To Carver's place, and then that family comes, and you can either turn them away or accept them.
Yeah. I was getting it confused with Kenny's ending, where you go to Wellington.
Yeah, that's the only one where I think you actually go to Wellington, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that you know of for
100%
sure.
Right.
Clementine may have ended up there on her own, but like where I played that game, it just cut off right as you walked into the horde.
Yeah, but her walking, like, you can just see it in her face. She is prepared for that. Like, she knows what she's doing, and
well, they had to do that earlier in the season. I mean,
she learned how to do that. She is
not just
equipped.
her, a baby as well. Like no fear. Like this baby could start fussing at any moment, and she's just like, slap some zombie blood on your face and let's go.
Yep.
I'm back.
I was wondering where you were.
You guys didn't hear Quinn freaking out in the background?
I didn't.
No, is everything okay?
Yeah, she's just having a night terror.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I hate those.
I have the monitor on, but it's way across the...
I was wondering why you weren't being contrarian. I was like, boy, Daniel's just sitting here and taking this.
Well, what being contrarian on.
Oh, nothing in particular. Just
I do have one thing that I wanted to say when you were recapping the whole season and everything.
Yeah.
Did you finish that yet, by the way?
yes.
Yeah, we just talked about the finale.
So what exactly happens at the end?
So at the end, there's a climactic battle between Kenny and Jane. So basically, your sort of father figure and your sort of sister figure.
Okay.
And you have to decide which one to help kill the other one. Because basically what happens, Jane takes the baby, runs off, and then Clementine and Kenny are looking for Jane, and they find her, but she doesn't have the baby. And Kenny loses it and starts trying to kill Jane, and Jane starts trying to kill Kenny. Clementine can't get them to break up, so she has to help one of them kill the other. And then it turns out that twist, Jane put the baby in a car in an abandoned car in freezing weather to prove a point that Kenny was unhinged. And that's why Clementine shouldn't trust him.
Oh. So she's the unhinged one.
Yeah.
I mean, they both are in their own way.
They both are in their own way, but Kenny, throughout the entire series, you understand why he's unhinged. It's not like he's starting from just, out of nowhere. He thought that you killed a child, Jane. Of course he's going to be mad at you. Anyone would be in that situation.
Yeah. And she never tried to... she didn't ever suggest otherwise. She legitimately did this to get him to go off.
Yeah. And...
Wow.
And then you have a choice, depending on whoever you save, to go with them or to go off on your own. And I was telling Jeremy, my favorite ending is where Clementine goes off on her own, and she finds this zombie body in a field and puts blood war paint on her face, and then just walks towards this zombie horde, and then cut to black.
All right, that's kind of cool.
What was the first ending you got? Your natural ending?
The first ending I got, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I didn't think I was helping to kill Kenny, so I helped Jane.
Yeah.
And then I found out that twist, and I was like, F that. Yeah. I stopped the game, reloaded, helped Kenny kill Jane, and that was my first ending.
So
I was pretty mad.
My first ending, I did the same thing, except I followed through with it, and I went with Jane. I wasn't really happy about it either. I was like, that's pretty messed up. You don't do that. But
yeah,
since I'd already made that choice, I was like, and I was thinking, well, I do have a better chance of surviving, especially with a baby, if I'm with her. So yeah. So I forgave Jane. Because that's your choice. Pretty much tell her to F off or forgive her.
Yep.
There's no in between.
Those are the endings. You can either go off solo and face a zombie horde by yourself, or you can go with Jane to this previous settlement, or you can go with Kenny and you wind up at Wellington, which is the destination you've been trying to get to the entire game.
Where at that point you can actually do two different things. Either, because they won't let Kenny in. So you can either go in with you and the baby, or you can choose to go with Kenny back into the, wilderness.
Yep. I think that last episode is really well executed. I know there are a lot of people who kind of deride the season 2 for having a lot of characters that are acting rashly, or strangely. And you know what? It makes sense to me.
You just had one too many Sarahs.
Everyone in this Walking Dead universe, because we don't have a ton of time to get to know them, it makes sense to me. They're under a lot of pressure. Of course, some of them are going to act irrationally. I don't really hold it against the story. I think there is enough substance behind their actions that kind of explains why they are doing what they're doing. Even if you're pretty much all the time, whenever they screw up, you're like, gosh dang it, guys, you could have avoided this.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem because, or not even part of the problem, but that plays into the narrative around Clementine for season 2, which is all about how essentially she solves not everyone's problems, but she's becoming a leader, and she is learning how to do things.
She's the diplomat. She's like the Secretary of State of this world.
Yeah. And she's like, two people are arguing, we need to do this, we need to do that. She's the one who comes in and she's like, why can't we do both? I think there are a lot of interesting situations that season 2 throws at the player, but I think ultimately it comes back to Clementine, and I find that a very compelling story about a girl learning how to be a woman and like becoming an adult and figuring out how to deal with a world that's totally against you. Like, I think that's... I find that very interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. I think you're right. They totally meant intentionally to focus just on Clementine, because she's going to be the central piece moving forward. I'm sure for many seasons to come if they keep doing it. They'll have to kill her off eventually because it is The Walking Dead.
Until the season where she sacrifices herself for a bus full of children or something.
Yeah, something like that. But no, it really does show. It shows her development well, because by the time this game ends, it's probably, what would you say, 2.5 years after the end of the first game, maybe.
Well, so the time jump at the beginning was 16 months.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine there were at least a few months, so it's you're probably right on 2.5 years.
Well, I mean, that starts off a year after the first, and then the next flash forward is 16 months. So yeah, I think 2.5 years is about right.
Well, there you go. And I think there are a handful of really good, just kind of human moments where the game is able to sit back and let characters bounce off of each other, and when it does that, I think you kind of recapture some of that first season camaraderie that you had. Like, there's a moment in there where, like, Jane and Nick, I think, are connecting, and they're kind of having a romantic fling, but they get discovered. And then there's another moment where I think it's Nick's birthday, and everyone kind of just shares a drink and like reminisces. And
well, I mean, Nick is an ass when you first meet him. Like, you don't like him.
Yeah.
And he kind of comes back around as to being somebody you genuinely like when his time comes. And you're like, man, that sucks. It sucks now. And then Luke, you love Luke from the beginning, but you know he ain't going to stick around.
Yeah.
Maybe I've missed this, but have you guys talked about the gameplay at all?
Yeah. What game?
We talked at the beginning. When you were here.
I mean, did you?
Yeah, we talked in depth about Telltale games in general.
No, but this game.
Well, it's no different than that. What would you like to...
Well, because is there... I mean, you said what gameplay, but, like, the first season of The Walking Dead was interesting because it started off much more like a traditional adventure game with weird, kind of obtuse little puzzles, and gradually got rid of a lot of those, but started to, like, implement some more, like, action sequences. Still, like, QuickTime. You guys did kind of talk about the QuickTime stuff, but like,
there's still those.
Is that all there
there's
is?
There's still some puzzle pieces in this game.
Okay.
Like after you get that bit by the dog and Nick and Pete find you, like on your way back to the cabin, like they realize you're bit and they throw you down and then they lock you in this shed, and you have to, find the right resources to be able to get yourself out of there, and then sneak in the house and be able to sneak into the room to where the medicine stuff is and sew yourself back up. I can't think of any other specifically, but there was definitely that one. And the time with Sarah, like the time with Sarah when you're alone with her in the cabin, that's pretty much just a puzzle. You got to do all these things with her, like take your picture.
There's a little bit in like the ruins after they escape from the compound, where you have to solve some puzzle, like finding some stuff. Although I think anytime you're talking about a puzzle in Telltale, you're giving it a lot of stretching the definition of a puzzle.
Yeah. It's more trial and error.
For sure.
And, like, again, I think that's kind of why we talked about this more at the beginning of the episode when we were talking about Telltale in general. But they haven't really been adding new pieces to it. Like,
the formula hasn't changed much.
Yeah, the most I've seen is in the Batman games. They added, like, kind of a new way to combat stuff. It was like a finishing move button that was optional that you could fill up by doing the quick time events well.
Okay.
But even so, like, that's a very minor evolution, and so I get why that would be a complaint about this game, but again, we kind of hand-waved it aside by saying, like, Telltale games succeed despite their gameplay, not because of it.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's something we said even in our Walking Dead episode, episode 3.
I don't know, I guess I would just rather they... Maybe I just want something different from Telltale games than they want to make. But I would much rather play something like Heavy Rain or like Until Dawn. Like something that is fashioned more after a movie than these games, which are fashioned after, I would say, adventure games. Like, they're fashioned after adventure games, but they're just telling straight stories for the most part. Whereas those games have a little bit of adventure game, but they are fashioned after films. And it's just more entertaining. I don't know.
We talked about that.
Man.
I asked the question if Telltale's backed themselves into the corner at this point of having to be that developer that makes these style of games. And Jack, pointed out they have several different development teams. And he thinks that they probably do have one working on a new engine, on a new type of game that could be a Heavy Rain type of game. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to get away from that, that narrative-focused concept.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that. Like, you guys know, I used to preach all about, there should be more games like that are easy to get into and that just tell a story, because I think games are very good at telling stories if done right. And The Walking Dead Season 1 is one of the best examples of that, in my opinion. But their formula is getting stale for me, and I can't really pinpoint why.
No, I think that's understandable. I really do.
No, like, it's totally understandable. Like, their formula wasn't that good to begin with. Like I said, they succeeded despite the gameplay, not because of it. And so the story for The Walking Dead Season 1 came out, like, at the perfect time for a Walking Dead game to come out.
Yeah.
The height of the show's popularity, on top of that, the presentation was great, the voice acting was great, everything about it was great, except the gameplay isn't compelling, and it never has been compelling in any of the Telltale games. I think what needs to happen in order for there to be more evolution in Telltale's design, I think they need to have more competitors, because there just aren't other people making even remotely quality games of this same type.
Well, and now they get all the big licenses. I mean, they're getting huge licenses, too. Yeah. That's really hard to compete with, even if you can make games of that quality and that type.
The only competitor that I have seen in recent years has been the Odd Gentlemen, and they're the team that's been making the King's Quest, the episodic King's Quest games.
Yeah, but also Life is Strange, I think, was definitely a competitor.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You're right, and that's getting a sequel. So
yeah, which is cool.
Hopefully that gets more traction. Like, that's
but
just
I think those
two. I
don't know. Those games follow that same formula. They are adventure games first, and narratives second, but they don't really seem to care about the adventure game. the only thing they use from the adventure game is the structure, the narrative structure, and I don't.
No,
I just
you're wrong about King's Quest, because King's Quest is definitely an adventure game. It has.
Well, yeah,
puzzles.
I think you're right. You're right.
That, I mean, you might be right about Life is Strange. I haven't played those games, so.
Yeah, Life is Strange is very similar to the Telltale game.
Does it have any puzzles?
Yeah.
Like actual puzzles, though?
Well, similar to Telltale, is like you have to figure stuff out within your environment, like to be able to advance.
It's pretty light puzzles.
Yeah, it's it's no Witness. So, Daniel, you really liked Firewatch, which you played after a couple of these point-and-click type of adventure games. What separated the two?
I think because Firewatch, one of the things that about The Walking Dead, like, when you were telling the whole synopsis of what happens in the season, Jack, I just kept thinking of how cliche so much of it sounded. Like, and even beyond that, The Walking Dead, just in general, I think has just, that franchise has just devolved into a soap opera for me. Like, it's just about these dramatic situations that the characters get themselves into, and it's just going from one dramatic situation to the next, and the structure of that narrative just gets really tired for me. I just don't get anything from it.
Okay.
And maybe I don't know. I'm evolving as somebody, like, I would much rather sit down and watch Mad Men right now than watch, I don't know, Lord of the Rings.
So those big set piece moments that are kind of long and drawn out to get to, just don't do it for you right now.
Well, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but for the Walking Dead series has been going downhill for me for a while.
Like all of it.
Would you play a Mad Men Telltale game?
That actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, like
if they could actually make it, like if they could actually pull off the nuance of the Mad Men television show and the entertaining, everything that made that show so good, then sure. But I don't have any faith that they actually could do that. And so you asked about Firewatch, though. I want to answer that.
Yeah. Okay.
Firewatch is about these two characters, and there is this kind of overarching mystery going on there, but that was never the thing that pulled me along in that experience. The thing that kept me engaged and kept me interested was this relationship between these two characters. It was an incredibly adult, maturely written relationship between these two characters that was never necessarily about them falling in love or anything like that. It was very much about learning to move on, and in the end, it was just about Henry and Delilah in a lot of ways, just learning to cope with their own problems without needing somebody else to help them do that, and without escaping from them, which is just a thing that games don't really approach very often. So that ending when I'm spoiling Firewatch right now a little bit. When Firewatch ends, no, just I'll be vague. But when Firewatch ends and it doesn't end up having this crazy mystery wrap up at all, I liked that. I appreciated that because I was never in it for the mystery in the first place. I was in it for those two characters and their relationship and the dialogue between the two. And it made sense to me, the point they were trying to make about with that ending. So it was just, that was something new and original that a game had not done before. So I don't know. And the gameplay, I thought, in Firewatch was actually pretty engaging. Like, you were exploring this
It was
world
way more
and
open.
discovering.
You were able to go wherever you wanted and find
Yeah,
things on
it
your
was
own.
very open.
But
And the world, the setting was a big
Yeah.
big part of it. It wasn't just shuttling you from one set piece interaction to the
No,
next.
I love Firewatch. Sincerely.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I was just curious what, in your mind, the difference was.
Telltale would do a lot better if they focused on making more drama games than actual action-oriented games. So I think something like a Mad Men game from Telltale would actually be much better than their typical lineup, because you're eliminating a lot of the need for these QuickTime events that you ultimately don't really... No one likes those.
Yeah.
Like, at best, they're palatable. Like, no one's like, oh, yeah, QuickTime events. And it would be nice if you could escape the comparisons to stuff like, oh gosh.
The
what was
Last
that?
of Us.
Not even The Last of Us. The game you mentioned, the horror game, the cinematic horror
Until
game.
Dawn.
Until Dawn. I wanted to say From Dusk Till Dawn, and I knew that wasn't right.
And that's a game that does the QuickTime events really well. I mean, that
Yeah.
is what that game does, and they nail them.
Yeah, and it's that, at least with the format that Telltale has now, that's just not something they're going to be able to accurately compete with. And I think the closest that they have come is actually in Tales from the Borderlands, and that's just because its art style matches so spectacularly with the source material.
So what are some of your other moments that stand out to you from The Walking Dead Season 2? Like, what
From
were
The
some of the
Walking Dead
choices
Season
you
2.
made that you can recall?
I mean, I really enjoyed the escape from the facility, from Carver's compound, and how that felt kind of sleuthy. Like, you're sneaking around and getting walkie-talkies and all that jazz, and then people are paying for it, and there's a lot of internal drama going on without, trying to be a big action set piece. And having that culminate with Kenny, essentially losing an eye, and then there's the whole turnaround where you're able to turn the tables on Carver, and Kenny gives Clementine the option to stay in the room with him and Carver or to leave.
You're going to watch him
That was a
beat
big...
him to death with a crowbar, or you don't have to.
Yep. She watched in my playthrough.
Yeah, me too.
Because,
I'm kind of morbid like that.
I just felt like
It
at
would
this
have more
point, she's
impact.
really jaded.
Yeah. I don't think she would have walked away.
And like I said, this game delivers on kind of the cruelty of this setting, because they really did not hold back with that crowbar.
No, it's actually very graphic at times.
Every time I would be like, okay, they're done now. And then it was like 2 more swings past that when they were actually done.
Yeah. Kenny lost his shit.
Yeah. That, and when to tell, I can't remember his name, but the partner of the guy who got shot on the bridge.
Yeah.
When to tell him that, hey, we're the group of people who killed your partner.
Yeah.
Hey, your husband. We killed him. And
For no reason.
yeah, for
At all.
essentially no reason except we were a group of strangers who found him very suspicious.
Yeah. Freaking Nick.
Yep. So those were the 2 moments aside from the end, and a lot of the stuff in the first episode. Like I said, there's a lot of heavy stuff going down in that episode 1.
Yeah. I think episode 1 and probably the last episode are the 2 strongest, in my opinion.
Definitely. With a few highlights in between.
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah. The rest isn't bad, but those 2 really, I think, set it apart.
Well, and as far as just like as far as reintroducing Kenny into the series, that was not something I had expected.
Me neither, at all. I was like,
and it was in a
shit,
big way.
They didn't kill Kenny.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, everybody, it's Kenny. Oh, he's got to go on a road trip now. He was there for the long haul.
Yeah. It wasn't a cameo. It wasn't Glenn from season 1.
Yeah. Freaking Glenn. So I guess now we should say, is The Walking Dead Season 2 a best game period?
Daniel?
Hey, you tell me.
Well, I guess I'll go first. So I've actually been torn on this game quite a bit. Like, on the one hand, it's not the same as Season 1 to me, but it's still really good. And...
Yeah,
I mean, I think if you're going to play Season 1, it's kind of hard not to play Season 2, personally. So, if I'm going to say Season 1 is the best games period, I'm going to have to say, yes, this one is as well.
Oh, it was pretty easy not to play it.
For you.
I was also equally torn on this game until I was just, I got to thinking, like, what do you actually want from a sequel to The Walking Dead? Like, do people actually want her to, like, find a second father figure that she feels the exact same way about and have them bond
Yeah,
for
basically the same story with
and have
a
him
new
dead?
skin.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, like...
It's like the Law and
or do
Order
we wanna
episodes. They're all the same. Really.
Or do we want to take this in a new direction that builds on what they did in the first game? And by game, I mean first season. I think as a sequel to The Walking Dead, this game is fantastic. This game is literally everything you could want from a sequel to the first. I think it, where it lost a lot of people was not quite having that emotional core outside of Clementine, and a lot of people weren't able to kind of make the jump from playing as Clementine's kind of guardian figure to playing as Clementine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that was hard for some people, and I think a lot of people have valid complaints about this game, but I think the thing is that it does so right and so intelligently that I'm leaning more towards yes. And it just concludes so well. Like, her entire arc throughout the series is really interesting to me. Like, seeing her grow as a human being and not just be kind of... At the beginning of Season 1, she was basically dead weight, and by the end of Season 1, she was dead weight who could hold a gun.
So, I mean, well, one thing that sticks out to me, like the first episode, you meet that dog, right? And he's pretty playful and whatnot, and you find this can of beans and you decide that you're going to share it with him. Well, the dog attacks you once you do that. And then with the first ending I got, the very first ending I got was with Jane, and you go back to Carver's compound, and that family shows up, and their kid is starving. And like I instantly thought back to, I tried to be nice to that dog, and it literally bit me. And I was really torn on whether or not to let them in or turn them away. Like it that wasn't an easy choice.
Yeah, there are situations throughout The Walking Dead Season 2 that haunt you. And I think, again, I'm generalizing like I did at the beginning of this episode, but I think there are a lot of people who try and optimize their decision-making in these games. Like, I'm going to be only the good guy and only do the good thing.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to do the bad thing and be a big jerk the entire time.
I think the second season does a better job of having those ambiguous or gray areas than the first season. Like most of the time in the first season, there was pretty obvious choices. In this season, there were some I don't know, man. What do I want to do?
And I think that also loses a lot of people because there are a lot, a lot of people view choice-based games as like this challenge to optimize, this challenge to get the best results.
Well, I mean, it comes from like Mass Effect. You either want to be a complete paragon or a complete renegade. That sort of thing.
Yeah. We have this very binary way of thinking about these types of choice-based games, and The Walking Dead Season 2 doesn't give people a lot of easy outs.
It really kind of takes that morality aspect out of it, that morality level, or whatever you want to call it. Whether it's like Mass Effect with Paragon, Renegade, or Infamous with the evil and good, karma. Like, you don't really have time to think about it. It doesn't give you much time to think about it either, because that bar is running down, so you have to make a choice.
And I think that's... A lot of people say that they want more gray decision making. I'm not entirely sure that that's actually what people want. In general, there are a lot of people who really appreciate kind of this gray area of storytelling, but I think that loses a lot of people for The Walking Dead Season 2, and I don't think it should... I think it deserves praise. Like, I think it's a really great game, and that's why I'm saying it's one of the best games, period.
All right.
So what say you, Daniel?
That's where I land on it.
I say if you guys say it is, then I can't argue with that.
I'm fully expecting a lot of flack on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, me too.
I'm saying I should probably play it, because you guys sold it pretty well.
Yeah. I mean,
so
maybe if you haven't played a game like that in a while and you go back to it, you might not be burnt out on that type of stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, you might respond better to it now that you have a little bit of distance from The Last of Us.
Plus, it's on like every platform available, I think. Jeez.
I'm pretty sure I have it.
Yeah.
It's just...
you must.
You can just have it on your phone and play it while you're driving to work.
Okay.
Don't do that. Don't play and drive. So, yeah. So, all Jack, you're headed somewhere this week, yeah? Next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm heading off to E3, so I'll be in LA next week when you guys record. I think you guys are going to be doing a special E3 breakdown for the main announcements that are going to be coming out.
Kind of like we did last year, I think. Yeah, we'll just...
Here comes your 19th E3 breakdown.
The first 3 days, and then we'll do a show about what's happened, because nothing really happens after that anybody wants to hear about.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think is going to happen? Make one big bold prediction, each of you.
I think NAC 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all going to be announced.
I think that's pretty safe.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have one bold prediction. I don't even know anymore. I'm always so wrong on these. And I'm not real in tune with the gaming industry right now, but my one bold prediction is probably that we're going to see something from Red Dead 2. I don't know. That's not even that bold.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much confirmed.
Is it?
Right?
See?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think...
We had Harold on. He seemed to imply that there was going to be something coming.
Pretty sure they're going to be at the PlayStation conference, but that's my guess. What about you, Jack?
Bold prediction. I think that we are going to see the next Dragon Age. I'm not gonna say that we're gonna see like release date and like gameplay blowout, but I'm gonna say we're gonna see like a logo and a teaser somewhere in.
That's kind of a
because
bold, underlined, and italicized prediction, because I haven't even considered that of being on the horizon yet.
I mean, I know they have a new IP that they're gonna be pushing hard. BioWare. That's probably gonna show up.
Wasn't there some rumor or some writer or somebody said that they were working on the next Dragon Age?
I'm sure.
Yeah, somebody said it sometime, somewhere along the way.
Some actor or somebody, yeah. All right.
What about you?
Cool.
Daniel.
You're all right. Jack's prediction was a bit more bold than yours, Jeremy, but yours wasn't very bold at all. Mine is bold as gold. It is that Sony is going to have a handheld device. It is basically going to be what the PlayStation TV was. You guys remember what that was? That
3D TV terrible thing? Or the app?
The like Vita TV, the little set-top box that you could hook up to another TV in your house. It's going to be that, but all it's going to do is stream whatever you've got going on your PlayStation 4. And it's going to work over Wi-Fi, and it will work from distance over Wi-Fi.
Isn't the Vita technically supposed to do that?
The Vita can do that. I've done it on the Vita. But
this would be dedicated to that?
This would only be a streaming box, and it would be an empty box otherwise that you can't use in any other way except to stream from the PlayStation 4.
I guess that might make sense. They invested a crap ton of money into Gaikai, or whatever it was called.
Yep.
So you should get something out of it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to have any guts other than what it needs to display and receive and display.
So it's like your satellite receiver in the second room, basically.
Basically, yeah. But you can take it with you outside of the house, but you would have to use it over Wi-Fi. Unless they have some sort of 3G plan again, which I don't see happening.
That was bad.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's my opinion.
I've been hearing some rumors about some kind of Sony handheld, so I don't... that's not outside the realm of possibility.
It better not be just flipping another stupid console like the Vita, honestly.
It's going to be super cheap. It's going to be like $150. It's going to look like a Vita, but it's going to have nothing
really
in it.
It's going to just be a screen. Yeah.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Sony is perfectly capable of making a great handheld device.
The hardware is amazing. It's the software that they suck at.
It's even with software, if they actually delivered on the promise. Do you remember when they announced the PlayStation 4, they basically said that like PS1 and PS2 games, like there was going to be an entire digital library of like streaming stuff.
Oh,
and, like they promised like the moon in terms of that, and we got like that never happened.
Well,
we got a couple of PlayStation 2 classics and PS Now, which really only does PS3 games.
Yeah, well, and it pretty much has the games that the PS3 already had for PS1.
Right.
On the digital store.
Now, if they launched a handheld device with, like, I don't know, even if it was a subscription service, and you're just like, I got this streaming device, or updated PS Vita, or whatever they call it, or whatever it is, if it came with a built-in library of PS2 and PS1 games, that would, like, right off the bat, would sell an infinite amount of
if it actually did that, and if it actually worked.
Right.
If it actually worked and could allow people to play PS2 and PS1 games on the go, like then even if it just did that, people would go bonkers over it.
No, I don't disagree.
And if you could add on the ability to play new games onto that too, that would be amazing. You could get people to pay a subscription service for just the ability to play those older games.
You could get them. You could get them to spend $150 on the hardware and get them to pay $10 a month for the subscription.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's the easiest sell in the world, but somehow there's something not coming together quite right.
They have 4 generations of consoles and 2 generations of handhelds.
There can't be that many licensing issues with those old games, like.
Especially with the ones
exactly. I was going to say.
I like when I'm in the middle of a sentence and you just cut me off.
I like that too. I do it. That's why I do it.
I'm just saying, they have almost as deep a history as Nintendo, and they don't capitalize on it.
Well, neither does Nintendo, frankly. But...
No, they don't.
True.
It's true.
All right.
Oh, Target should be getting new Switches this weekend. I'm going to be on the hunt.
Yeah?
Oh,
You
okay.
go down there and flick the lights off and on?
That was a bad good joke.
I know, right? All right. So, Jack, have fun at E3.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah.
And I guess we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
For sure. Are we going to actually end the episode?
Yes, let's end the episode.
Okay.
All right. Jack?
That's me.
Jeremy?
Are you in mid-sentence, or can I say that's me?
You just did.
Okay.
Thanks for interrupting.
Sorry.
Thank you both for joining me tonight for episode 65 of The Best Games Period. And thank you, good listeners, for joining us as well. We post these shows every week on community.extra-life.org. Jack's going to tell you all about Extra Life. In case you don't know what it is, we love Extra Life, so we try to promote it as much as we can. Jack, take it away.
It's a cool charity where you get to play games and help kids, so go sign up. It's over on extra-life.org. It's certified 501c3, so head over there. You know where your money's going. It's great. And yeah, you can find more over at community.extra-life.org.
Nice job, Jack. And you can find this show every week, like I said, community.extra-life.org. You can also find it on GameInformer.com. You can find it on Facebook.com/bestgamesperiod, Twitter @bestgamesperiod, iTunes under The Best Games Period. You can find us on SoundCloud under The Best Games Period, and you can find us on Libsyn, our hosting site. You can support us on Patreon to get extra bonus episodes. It has been weekly, hasn't it?
No.
Oh,
no.
All right.
But
not weekly.
But we do have another. I meant to put it up this week, but it's been pretty busy prepping for E3. But
just
we
cut
got
Just cut it.
Okay, I'll stop.
just cut this out.
All right.
So that's it. I believe that's it. Yeah.
All right.
Until next time. We'll see you all on the flippity dip. Can you guys hear my daughter in the background screaming?
Yeah,
I thought that was
could hear
your
that.
cat, actually.
I couldn't tell. I can't tell if you guys can hear. Let me wait for her to finish before There's really no point in me going down there because she just keeps going.
I can't hear her now.
All right. Until next time, we will see you all on the... God damn it.
Now I can.
Somebody else just finish.
Good night.
Until next time, we'll see you on the dippity flippity.
Little girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines where the sun never shines. We'll shiver the whole night through. My daddy was a railroad man, killed a mile and a half from here. His head was found in the driver's wheel. His body was never